The wedding feast. It's a parable about the wedding feast. And towards the end of the parable, the king goes through the party and he comes across an individual that does not have on the wedding garment, which is symbolic of righteousness. Righteousness, according to Revelations 19 or 20, is clean and white. Clean and white. Clean and white. Covered in clean and white. Covered in righteousness. Covered in truth and grace. God's God's standard of truth. God's standard of logic, reason. Uh, Again, in St. John 1 says the word, that means logos. So logos, or logic and reason, that means that logic and reason originate literally from the second person of the Trinity, Jesus Christ, or the Word, prior Melchizedek, the second person of the Trinity. So logic and reason. So covered in righteousness, which is clean and white, talking about purity. There's other scriptures where it talks about in the New Testament about putting on the new man, putting on Jesus Christ, putting on a clothing, putting on. So putting on the wedding garment, putting on righteousness. So Jesus Christ became and is the new man. Christ is the new man. So putting on the new man. So he saw this individual that did not have on the wedding garment, and he told his guards to remove this individual. So here we're talking about righteousness. We're talking about truth and grace, the new man. I'm going to go to Colossians 3 or 4, Colossians 4. This is about righteousness again. So without righteousness, there is no love. They go hand in hand. There is no love without righteousness. There is no life without righteousness. Just as there is no life without the light from the sun that's in our the not only that, all the planets rotate around the sun. The closer you get to the sun, all right, at the right distance from our sun, there's life, warmth, plant life developing and growing. So there's development, there's growth. Just to name a few. Last week we talked about medicine. Medicine. We have what do they call it? Herbs and natural herbs and so forth, coming from the plant life because of the light from the sun. So it's the same idea when it comes to health, spiritually speaking, health. Our health ultimately comes from or originates from, or we rely upon spiritual health as far as having a sound mind from righteousness, from Christ. So even the our healthy mind, our sound mind, comes from righteousness, originates from the sun. Our health, our diet, the optimal diet that we should have, which helps us in the long run, in a sense, to run this race. The energy that we have comes from our diet, right? So even in the natural, our diet is very important, um, but it's even more important in the spirit. So that means that truth and grace is what helps us finish the race, finish the course. Truth and grace, like I said, if there's no light coming from the sun, there's no food. Animals can't. What are the animals going to eat? The herbivores, they eat plant life. Those animals that are not uh, carnivores, that are carnivorous, um, they depend on plant life. So it is the same with us in the spirit. We depend on Christ for everything. We depend on righteousness for everything. The health of an organism or an organization is dependent upon there being light in that environment. So in that environment, the health of the organization, as far as the life being present, depends on if there is the new man present, if righteousness is present, if righteousness is present. Excuse me. So I brought up. I'm going to end on this note. I'm going to continue on forward next week, talking about the life, and hopefully this was or is clear. This is just really the beginning when it as far as the light is concerned, the light of righteousness, which is Jesus Christ. Um, but I started the message out about creation and about intentionality, and as it's said in St. John 1, that all things were made. Let me just read that one more time. That there was nothing that was made. Let me see. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So everything that we see with our visible eyes was a product or is a product of creation. Uh, a designer. So everything that was made was a product of a creator, which means that there's a reason, a purpose, there's a function for everything existing, right? So that means that there's intentionality attached to our lives, attached to our functions, meaning del- us being deliberate, us being deliberate, purpose driven in a sense. If evolution is not true, which it is not, then that means that there are no accidents. That whatever takes place, whatever happens, whatever event unfolds, there's a cause behind it. That means that with the righteousness specifically, we have to be intentional about being a light and also ultimately shining. It says that in Matthew 5, it says, um, it talks about to be a light and shine, basically. It says that neither do men put a candle under a bushel, but they place the candle on a candlestick and it gives light to all, right? It says, I'm just going to go to there for one moment. It says, let your light, this is 5:16, Matthew 5:16. So this is talk about being a light. And we'll go into, Lord willing, we'll go into next week what it means to be a light. Let your light so shine before men. So that means being a light and shining, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father, which is in heaven. So being a light and shining. So being intentional, us being intentional, is a part of being a light and shining. Us being intentional, purpose driven, purposeful, right? There are no accidents. So when there's a light, an individual or individuals collectively, when we're being a light, we're being intentional. That means we're doing things on purpose, or we're being, so to speak, on purpose, or our intentions should be, I should say, to focus, our concentration should be on being a light, being a light. I don't know if it was a month ago, but I talked about what as far as holiness. So I'm going to retread a little bit next week about holiness. It says, "Be ye holy, for I am holy. Be ye holy, for I am holy." So the significant part of that verse, really, to me, is the be part. So that means holiness is a state of being, not doing, and that's where we get into self-righteousness. We get into being religious or pharisaical, because all of the other religions are centered around doing. The focus and concentration is on doing. But in Christianity, in true Christianity, the focus should be on our initial focus, because we really can't do or shine, which is do good works, unless we are first being. So just as there can't be any growth unless there is light in the natural, there can't be any growth unless there's light in the spiritual, unless there's righteousness, unless we're focusing on and concentrating, all of us concentrating on being holy and what that means. So we're going to look at being holy and what that entails, why that's significant. That's what separates us from really and truly other religions, is the being holy, the being, the not the doing, but the being, not the doing, but the being. So hopefully I can be clear. Hopefully this was clear, and hopefully next week I can be clear as well. But that's what's important, is us being holy, being right, being righteous. That's there's another scripture that talks about the prayers of the righteous availeth much. Prayers of the righteous availeth much. There's a word righteousness, and then there's righteous. EOUS, EOUS, right? EOUS, righteous. The EOUS means and signifies and indicates nature, right? Nature. Having the nature of him who is right. Nature. NESS is quality. So he wants us, and that's the new man. The new man is the new nature. Righteous. A being of light. Righteous. So we're praying out of his nature. That's what that verse means. Praying out of his nature. What does that mean? His nature. So we'll get into that next week. But I would say that the important thing, the significant thing, is that there cannot be the life, there cannot be growth, there cannot be flourishing within the environments that we find ourselves in, unless there's light, unless there's righteousness, and indeed unless there's holiness, which is the same. Unless there's holiness, there cannot be life. There cannot be, nor will there be development unless light is shining, unless righteousness is present. So thank you, and hopefully that was clear.